Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guests today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Welcome back into some more bite-sized business advice. Today's episode, we're talking about building brand loyalty and retaining customers for a long time, which I like. That's awesome. That's the best way to grow your business, of course, not finding new customers, but retaining and maximizing conversation. I hope you do too, but I'm joined with a very special guest. I want to say, I believe our first guest from Mexico. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty positive. Jose Ganem, welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Brandon, and I'm glad to be the first Mexican host. Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you know what? Well, let's just put the flag in the ground right now. You are the first. I'm not going to go back and check. So if any of our loyal listeners, if I'm incorrect in that, please let me know, of course. But Jose, welcome in. It's so great to have you. And I love this conversation. As I said, I think not enough companies lean into building loyal relationships with their customers for the long term. We're so much more focused on, that short-term customer acquisition, and we miss the mark. It's harder for us to grow. So where do you like to start with this conversation when you're working with a company or with a brand?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's easy to lose sight of the long term, right? Usually, where we start and where I like to start with companies is why did they like if it's a new company, most of the times you'll be able to talk with the founder and kind of get that first person in a story of where this business comes from. But if it's like if there's a management team or the owners are not there anymore, usually that purpose gets lost. Like, why did the company get started beyond making money? That's where I like to begin, because usually that's the story that our customers really connect to. So that's where we really start to dive into why this company started. Who are we trying to serve, and how do we deliver on promises consistently? That's the key to building trust. So that's where we like to begin. Like, why did this company get started? How can we dive deeper into that purpose and start to build on that sentiment, on what do we want people to feel about our company? That's I would say that's the starting point.
I love that. It's so important, yet it's usually overlooked by people because they think it's, it's just my story. Like, who's going to care about that? But obviously it's important because that is your brand. It's why you exist. Can you give us some examples of, clients you've worked with who maybe they started with that very response of like, oh, it doesn't matter. I don't really, we don't care about why we started. And then what you were able to pull out of them as far as their brand story?
Of course. I mean, I think the biggest things, the biggest case studies that I would have for that is people that tell me that they started their business just because they wanted to make money, which I think I think it's good. Like, the purpose of a business is to make money. Like, that's the reality. However, the biggest businesses in the world are the ones that started with a real purpose of trying to help people in a human way, right? So really, for us, like, when we've worked with companies that have this problem, it really comes down to trying to dive deep into the founder story or the team story, into why this should be something that changes people's lives, right? For example, like, we work with a lot of real estate developers, and of course, like, there's a lot of people that they have a bad perception of real estate, right? Because they're deforesting, maybe they're removing a lot of like natural spaces. But when we work with real estate developers, we try to kind of lean them in the direction of like, yes, like, this space used to be like a nice clean green space, and now there's going to be people living in it, right? But how can we make this space work for the people that live in it, and make it in a way that they're surrounded by nature, and that this becomes like like a nice synergy between human beings and the construction or the developer, so that this doesn't seem just like a money grab, but like you're actually interested in the quality of life of the people that you're trying to serve, and you're trying to build good spaces, and spaces where they can become a better version of themselves even, and that's the focus that a real estate developer could have to develop a new development. Also, for example, a lot of the times, like the example that you gave happens with software companies or like tech companies, right? That they're like, listen, man, like I'm just a software developer. Like nobody's gonna care about my story. Nobody's gonna care about why I started developing. But that's where I try to lean them in the complete opposite direction. And I actually work with a couple different entrepreneurs that are trying to grow their personal brands on social media. And I always try to tell them the most important part of your business is not the features of your product, but your story behind it. Why are you doing this? Why are you trying to help the humans that you're trying to help? And at the end of the day, when people see that and they see that you are a real person trying to help them, they connect with that. So that those are the kinds of strategies that most of the times with conversation, my job as a facilitator is not to tell you the answer, but to help you get it out there. And I've always thought ideas in your mind are just unorganized ideas. When we can actually bring them out of you, put them down in the document, and have you read it and make it make sense to you, then that's an organized way of processing your thoughts.
I love that example of the software developer though, because while I've never actually coded software, I've never sold software. I have bought it a number of times, and quite expensive software in some cases. And I was thinking back to the software that I bought, or the plans I subscribed to, and why. And it was always because I knew the story of how it came to be. It wasn't like, oh, this will make me more efficient, or so on and so on. It was like the developer had this problem that I can relate to in my business. So he or she built software to solve that problem. And I'm like, oh, my story sounds like that one. I'm going to invest in this software or this product, whatever that may be. So, even as you're talking about it, it's becoming more and more apparent to me, which I just think is really cool, because it's a great example of where you would naturally say you don't need the story.
Of course. Well, humans are emotional beings. Like we're all emotional beings. So that human personal connection is always going to win over features, or over even, like, say in that case where you bought that piece of software, there might have been another software that was priced the same way, that maybe even had a better logo and a nicer website and a nicer everything, but you connected with this person's story. That is going to be so much more valuable to you than just having a nice design. You can hire the most expensive agency, the most expensive designer, you can hire those, and you're still not going to have a brand. To build a brand, you need a good story, and you need a way to tell that story. And that's important in brand building, right? To build long-term loyalty, which is what we're talking about.
Yeah. So let's go down that route a little bit. So we understand our story. We're going to start building a brand around that story. How do you connect that to building a long-term relationship with your customers or your clients?
Awesome. So that's the starting point, definitely. Then I think what happens most of the times is that we don't have a good defined buyer's journey and customer touch points. So how many touch points does it take for a prospect to become your customer? You need to know that. Like, you need to know how many times does it take for a prospect to become your customer, to be able to meet them where they are, not where you want them to be, which of course, like, who doesn't want to, like, show one ad, people click on it and they buy and it's all beautiful, right? Reality is much more complicated.
Be amazing.
Yeah, right. Reality is so much more complicated. Like, there are so many options and there are so many companies battling for attention, that and they're not just building nice websites, and they're they're not just designing nice logos. They're building mechanisms in people's mind to make sure that they're always thinking about those companies as the option whenever they want to buy that product. So I think that one of the most important parts is the customer experience. Make sure that it's always positive, that there's seamless interactions across all touch points. Like make sure that if you want your company to feel like modern and like a open company, make sure that your customer reps, make sure that your website experience, your social media experience, the actual experience using the app or using the product reflects those values. Because there's nothing worse than when you get great marketing, beautiful videos, and then you get the product and it's like, what is this? Like, this doesn't match what I expected. And you lose a customer there. And then another thing that can happen is that everything is perfect, but then maybe let's say you don't want the product anymore, or maybe you just want something new and you want to return it, or you want to. This happens a lot with like software when you want to cancel the software, and it's like you have to like do 3,000 amazing things to be able to cancel the software. Like, just give me a button where it says I can cancel, because like if that experience is bad at the end, then I'm not going to come back to you. Never. And when people ask me for a recommendation of a product, and it might be yours, and maybe I liked it, I'm gonna say, yeah, I liked it, but at the end, it's a bad experience. So you never want to have that. Like, to build that long-term loyalty, make sure that all of your touch points are optimized. Make sure that you can meet your customer where they are to actually create this good experience that you want people to have with your business.
That's a really interesting area that you bring up, the offboarding of clients, or even if it's a pause in working with a client, whether it's software or if it's a subscription based service, and they just need a minute to breathe, whatever it may be. How important is it to understand, to take that same philosophy of matching your brand identity across all the touch points into the offboarding, but not only that, to understanding why they are offboarding, whether it's a different product or they just need a pause. Do you work with people who don't put any effort into that? And how do you go about understanding what those reasons are?
I've worked with people that make it absolutely super hard for clients to offboard on purpose. And my approach is never. Like, if if they're trying to leave like, if someone comes into your store and they bought one thing but you want them to buy three, you're not just going to close the doors and tell them don't get out the store until we buy three, right?
That's a great analogy. I like that.
Yeah, like, it doesn't work like that. People don't buy just because you tell them to buy. So if you touch on a really good point, and that's the most important part of really having a company, in my perspective, is having constant customer feedback loops. Like, especially if you have a software company where you're having maybe dozens or hundreds of turnover clients a month, like, at least talk with 5 of them, at least talk with 10 of them. Have quick 5-10 minute conversations with them where you understand why they're leaving, and make sure you improve on those things. And if they tell you that your offboarding process it's a pain, then change it. Like, at the end of the day, that's what we were talking about at the beginning. You want to think about the long term. You don't want to think of your company in spans of 1 year or 2 years. So, like, let's say that you're trying to reach 1,000 customers and you're trying to make it really hard for them to leave, and that's because you want to reach 1,000 customers this year. Then those 200 or 300 customers that maybe didn't like you and left are never going to come back. Never. Instead, if you actually take care of those clients and tell them, hey, that's okay. If you want to leave, that's awesome. If you ever want to come back, here's a discount. Maybe some will come back. And in the long term, you're going to build that brand. You're going to build that loyalty of, this person cared about me, understood that at this time and moment I didn't need them, so they make it very easy for me to leave. And now if I do need them again in the future, I have this discount, and I'm not only going to use it, but I'm going to recommend them. So by really, like, at the end of the day, humans buy from humans. We're people, and we have to like we have to put them ourselves in our customer shoes, be empathetic, and really understand that if they don't want it anymore, they don't want it anymore. That's I mean, Amazon makes it really easy, right? To buy, to give bad things, and how many times have you bought from Amazon? Like how's Amazon doing, right? So I think that putting your customer first philosophy should be like their priority for most companies.
Yeah, I love this. And you can learn so much from those people too, because I know I've been in scenarios where I discontinue using a product or a subscription, and they just ask like, what is it? Like a drop down menu. Was it, lack of education, uh, poor onboarding experience, poor product experience, whatever it is. And then in some cases where if you hit a button like, I didn't fully understand how to use the product, they'll pop up like 4 tutorial videos and say like, these might help you. I've stayed on because of those videos,
Exactly.
just because of the continuing support of like, listen, we don't want you to leave because of course that's costing us revenue, but we also don't want you to waste your money on this product. If this would help, we want to give that to you. Otherwise, you're more than welcome to leave. How do you work with your clients to fully understand why people are leaving and then go back upstream in the process and make a better either product, service, or onboarding and training, whatever that may be?
Definitely, definitely. I mean, the way that we work with our clients is basically we we like to talk with two customers. We like to talk with current customers. Why are they with us? Why they like our company? Why are they doing business with us? And then we like to talk with clients that decide to didn't buy, or maybe they left in this case. Um, I worked for a long time in real estate. That's where most of my expertise comes from. And for us, it was really interesting to understand why a client decided to buy from another developer than from us. And a lot of the times, you just have to ask them, like, "Hey, could I hop on a call with you 5 minutes just to understand why you made this decision?" And most of the times, they'll say yes, and that's where you'll understand. Or maybe they they showed me, like, for example, in the real estate case specifically, like maybe the contract for the other developer for buying my real estate piece of property, maybe I just like the contract a little bit better, or maybe they just like the location of the real estate property better than yours. Or maybe there was a moment in the sales process where your salesperson really wasn't knowledgeable about these questions that I asked them. So that's when, okay, now I got this feedback. Okay, so maybe I can't improve the location of where my development is right now, but maybe the next one I can. Or maybe, I'm not gonna just say to the salesman, "Oh, you did this wrong," but maybe I'm gonna start a training, making sure that all of my salespeople know how to reply to customer objections and what objections are the ones that I need them to answer the best on, and make sure I practice with them so that they're confident whenever they're speaking to a customer. So those are some examples. There could be a lot of more things, like, yeah, maybe I just didn't like your website. Maybe your sales brochure was just bad, or maybe they didn't have the information that I needed. So maybe there are some design executions or marketing executions that you need to do, but a lot of the times it comes from that human interactions that you get the most of the insights. And that's where we get them really talking to clients and understanding where things went wrong to make sure we dial them in for next time.
I love this conversation so much. Imagine that. Talk to your clients, right?
Yeah.
Novel concept. But it also, it makes me think the more you understand why people say no or not right now to you, the more you can increase the rate people say yes, and the service you do to them, because you fully understand everything that could go wrong or has gone wrong and eliminate that to the best of your ability. So I think this conversation, I said in the beginning, it's important. It's one of my favorites to have, to really build that brand loyalty, those relationships with your clients over time. And Jose, I can't thank you enough for being here. Where can the listeners learn more about you and possibly reach out to work with you?
Awesome. No, thank you, Brandon. I'm on TikTok, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram as Jose A. Ganem. They can follow me there. They can also follow the agency, Round Branding, on all of social media, and that's where we really put most of our work. If they want to connect with me personally, and they want to, I'm always putting out content about branding and brand strategy, and TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter at Jose A. Ganem. Yeah.
I love it. We'll put all those links and everything in the show notes down below, the website, the socials, to make sure we have those from Jose. Jose, I appreciate you being here. Wherever you're watching or listening, I'd appreciate if you subscribe too. We love bringing you these conversations 5 days a week to help you build a more harmonious business and life. We'll see you on tomorrow's episode of Harmonious at Lunch.